and welcome to another episode. Today, we are going to talk with two solutions architects, two managers of solution architects that have managed over 1,000 solution architects. That's a lot of people. So, these are perfect people to talk about career development, what solutions architects do. They have seen a lot of people grow a lot of careers, impacted a lot of lives. So, here we have Nahia, Orduña, and Slavik Dimitrovic.
Close
I
enough.
hope I didn't.
Very well.
It's-
Excellent pronounce.
Welcome and sorry for destroying your surname. How are you doing today?
So far, so good. Recently traveled, so still a little bit under jet lag, but hopefully I'll stay awake and coherent for the rest of the interview.
If not, it will be very fun. Uh, how are you, Naya?
I'm very good. I think it's like the third podcast that we record together, so always fun.
It's always good. Yeah, so everybody's jet lag in the in that
Yes.
side. That's good, but we will do our best to keep it entertaining for our audience and very educating because at least we did a few years ago with Naya chat on what do we talk about?
So the first one was about applied AI.
Yeah.
All we were, I remember we were talking a lot about comprehend. It's like it was a
Yes.
lot of fun. And all
That
other
was a
applied
lot.
AI services. And then we talk another about last year about Code Whisperer and how
Yes.
we're going to be more efficient with Code Whisperers. So I think it all fits very well together to
Yeah.
this one.
Exactly, because you wrote a book together and that's how you met like that or how you met? You can give a little bit background of to the audience on what is your story
So
and how
so
you end
s-
up
so
with a book.
so we met for the first time in Slack. I don't know if Slavik you remember, but I remember very well that it was in Slack because I needed some help, and somebody told me Slavik he's like a SA manager, like forever head of SA, like he can help you with something about writing a promo doc or something like this, or a wiki I was creating, and then I got some guidance from him. And then somehow I started sharing that I was writing, right, some articles and so on. And then he gave the idea. So it's like you can go on.
Yeah, I always felt that there are plenty of people who are interested in this career and always had in the back of my mind either have some YouTube video or a book or a blog, like to reach out to the people who are considering this career and tell them what it is really about. But I was a little bit scared. I felt that writing a book was too much time, too difficult, didn't know how to start. And then Nahia just told me, yeah, it's not a big deal. I've done it before. Easy peasy. I'll guide you through it. And that was exactly the sort of the push and the reassurance I needed to go from it would be nice to do it sometime in the future to let's do it now.
She's really do it for doing thing.
Yeah, I never thought about writing a book about solutions architect. And then he told me about that. And I thought, actually, it's a good idea. It stopped a bit because it was when we met in Seattle last in summer that I was going there on a business trip. And then I remember like we said that and I was like, let's do it before the end of the year. Let's put a date. And then, yeah, that's how it
So
started.
in few months you had a book.
Yeah, it was more like he was not like he was like, "Can we do it?" I was like more like, "Hold my beer, let's do it."
Yeah,
so
quite
I,
frankly, I did not expect that it was possible. I thought it was such a big deal, but I thought it would be nice to set that deadline as a forcing function. Surprisingly, we actually made it.
Yeah. How you made it? Because it's quite impressive to write a book in so few months. You have
Nahia
some
has a very
secrets
good
to share?
methodology. It's all about that methodology.
exactly. I think my next book is how to write a book when you don't have time to write a book. But actually, I also thought it will be too. We cannot say because the point is we want to write about the solutions architect and how the job is going to evolve in generative AI times, and it could not be just what we think. That will be too like we are more humble than that. It's like what others think. And then yes, I suggested this survey that over 100 people or so answered. So we got a lot of inputs from everybody, and then we continue doing interviews. So this is not like what we think is we have talked to people from different countries levels from different kind of spectrums to get to this. We even talked to our customers.
Yeah. So you collected a lot of information and you let the information to write the book for you, basically.
Exactly. We outsourced everything except the shaping of the book, survey, and then putting it all together. All the content we outsourced.
That's great. Yes, and the book is available as Kindle, so if people if they want to get it, We can leave the link in the description box.
Yeah, back
Also
as
as a
well. Yeah,
paper.
it's paperback. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow, that's
I'm going to
awesome.
send you, Marcia. I'm been sending around the world,
I
so I
have
can
I
send
have
you.
the Kindle version. That's why I know it's
Ah, okay.
available there. But
Yeah.
I didn't know it was also available as a physical book.
The
Wow,
power of
how it
Amazon
felt.
self-publishing.
Exactly.
I discovered it was very easy. I discovered it was very easy when Nahia was doing.
It was,
Asked me to do it
no,
myself.
it's really it's very straightforward. I when I wrote my first book, I was not at AWS yet, and I was like, that was one of the things that impressed me so much about Amazon, how easy is the experience for so many things. Um, I use that story also in my interview to come to Amazon. So,
Yeah, self-service. You can even publish a book as a
exactly, exactly.
self-service. So
So so good.
that's really cool. So now you have a book, and how the book is doing. I know it did very well, at least in the beginning of the year when it was in some top charts and
Yeah,
people
it
were
was super
like,
good. It was number one top seller in different categories in different countries, and that's the magic, right? We're uploading it, and then we have people over the world reading it from countries like I was saying with the Slavik, like Japan. I've never been to Japan; it's one of my countries, and then I saw it was number one there. I was like, do I have to go in a tour? I go. I would love to do that. Yeah.
yeah. So that feels super good to have a book that you wrote in a few months. You put a lot of information from hundreds of people, and then it's really providing value to so many that they keep on buying it, and reassuring you that you have done a good job. So today, I think we can talk a little bit about what is in the book and about some of the main points that you have been doing in the book. So you talk about the solution architects of the future. So mm, Slavik, you when I was talking to you, you said you're managing essays in the generative AI and ML, and I know Naya, she's a super proponent of ML and generative AI. So it goes in that direction. How much generative AI will empower our work? Can you tell us more on how you see it? What was the TLDR from the book? Are
Well,
we out of shop? Should we
TLDR, yeah,
open a
TLDR
baker?
from the book is that we don't know. It's too early to say. This technology is still in its infancy and is changing very fast. And yet there is genuine concern that it may become so good that it will replace us. But so far, all the indications are that it will not replace us, but rather it will become a very helpful and powerful assistant that will help us take care of things that are more mundane that we quite frankly don't always like doing but have to be doing, like some industry research, some boilerplate writing, those kind of things. And let us focus on some things that we really want to be doing, which is diving deeper into complex problems, applying unique human judgment and expertise, and provide customer advice specific to their circumstances. I don't think generative AI will reach the point where it will be able to do that anytime soon. There is, based on what I know now, right? And again, everything changes very fast. But based on what I know now, and based on the trend that I see, that's most likely what to expect in the next 5 to 10 years. Now, there is a caveat, right? It will depend on solution architects to master the skill of partnering with Gen AI effectively. Those who will become substantially more effective and productive than those who will not be able to master it. So I think that's where I would focus on as existing solution architect or aspiring solution architect is how do I partner with generative AI?
Yeah, that's something. At least I'm not a solution architect, I'm a developer, and I did a whole reinvent talk on how you can partner with generative AI as a developer, because it's the same concerns for essays than for developers. Are we are going to be totally replaced? There is these magic tools that can write code. How I'm going to exist? And again, it's about learning the tools. And I always say it's like when, I don't know, other technologies emerged, better programming languages. When developers started coding, they were using assembler and talking to machine, and now the programming languages are super high level, and we can be super fast, and we can basically speak English or whatever the programming language is aligned, but it's more comprehensive, it's abstracted, it's higher up in the hierarchy. The same with IDEs. We have been working in text editors that didn't help us at all, and we needed to compile and see the errors like 20 minutes later. Good luck. And now we have things that are giving us feedback. And the same with AI. It's there. It's something we need to learn to use, and we just need to learn it.
Yes, yes. I think I agree with you. I think it's a very good analogy. I think that it's exactly the same journey. Is every time a higher abstraction programming language becomes available, it makes people more productive. But and in fact, it usually creates more opportunities, right? Because if you think about those stages from assembly to Fortran, COBOL, ALGOL to Java, C++ early, then Java, C Sharp, and then Python, every time the number of people developing increases maybe tenfold, maybe more. So it actually is increasing up number of opportunities. I believe it's the same here. It's going to be the same here.
Yeah, it opens the doors, it democratizes the technology, and also it makes you more productive. I used to program in assembler, and I spent, I think, 1 year of my life doing an operation modulo on a small CPU. That was my main purpose on life, because I have a super small CPU with a very small registry, and my task for the year was to find a mathematical computation that I can make a modulo operation for cryptography in a small chip. That's a waste of time.
That is.
It's just, I can, if I will be in a higher abstraction level, I could basically use the modulo function and forget about it.
Yeah.
But it just,
I like to think the concept of like augmenting, right? Like we see LLMs and so on, they can automate some task, which is usually like the routine part that's going to make us more effective because we have to do less routine tasks. But then it can also help us to brainstorm things, to give us new ideas. And that's the part where I see more the augmented. So I like to, for me, TLDR will be like become an augmented essay if you want to be competitive. You can brainstorm more, especially those parts that they're giving you ideas. Of course, you have in the end to accept them or not, or use them or not. But that's what I will say, like augmented
I
essay.
think that's an excellent TLDR, augmented essay.
that's a great thing, because sometimes we think about at least generative AI as something that you get answers from it, but you can challenge
Of course,
it.
yeah, that's a fun thing, yeah, right? To do it like this, yeah.
Imagine you're my customer and this is
Exactly,
something
those
to
things like yeah, or yeah, create a party rock and do something yourself that helps you to brainstorm. That's what I think is like more the magic happen. Only routine task being more efficient. That's not the point. And the same like when we talk about code whisper being your companion that is next to you, telling you things. You can ask them to shut up, or you can get some things. Then look for it.
yes. So that's the basic kind of thing from generative AI, and says, don't worry, we're fine.
Oh no, do
Just
worry, but worry about different thing. Worry about
well,
partnering
yeah,
with generative AI to be more
Exactly.
productive
exactly.
rather than worry about being replaced.
If not,
Yeah,
you're
but
going to
keep
be
on
left
learning.
behind. Exactly. If not, you're going to be left behind.
Yeah,
That's
there is a
life of,
risk. There is a risk to be disrupted, but the risk isn't that you're replaced, but that others who are more effective by partnering with Gen AI will leapfrog you and you will be left behind, exactly as Nahia
yeah.
said.
But that's the life of working in
In
IT. You're
technology, yeah,
always,
It
you
is.
are
yeah,
always in the verge of, you have to learn. You
yeah.
keep on learning.
But
Yeah,
it's the
you're
beauty
always on
because
an escalator going in one direction and you're running in the opposite direction. You have no
Yeah.
luxury of stopping.
but also the beauty is that there is if people want to jump into these careers, you don't need to have 50 years of experience on that. This is something new. So just go for it. Go for things that are growing and getting more new.
That is actually an excellent point, Naya, you made it, is that it also potentially can create a whole new branch of solution architects, which is about building Gen AI systems, which is so new that if you have decades of experience, it will not help you as much. I mean, it is, there is certain things that are transferable. Like program in assembly, you cannot transfer it directly to Java, but there are certain understanding how hardware works at that level does help sometimes, right? And so it's the same here. Some skills are transferable, but for the most part, it's so new that people who have 5 years of industry experience will have the same chance at becoming effective as people who have 25. So it's a great democratizer. So I think you make a very good point, Naya. So now it's an opportunity for people to enter this field on equal footing with those who've been in the industry for 20, 25 years.
Yeah, because it's, I think essays is one of those, it's like DevOps or SRRs that are always like, it's hard to be a junior in those roles unless you have a really good mentoring, because jumping as a solution architect from school is like, oh, maybe in Amazon it's possible because there's so many, but in a smaller organization, it's just very hard. So this is good. All those young people listening. Yeah. Do you have some strategies that you got from the book or that you hear from the people that you interview, like that are good ways that they are using to prepare for the future? I imagine some of them might be aligned with generative AI, others I don't know.
No, I was listening to different people telling how they are like embedding it and how it's like sometimes they have become more productive with that. But in the end, especially in these one-to-one interviews that we were doing, they were always coming back to why they needed the human part. Like I remember this one a story with Giselle from Brazil that she was saying how they had created some architecture using Gen AI for the customer, and then going there, and then she realized that they presented it to the CTO, but the CTO was she felt really that there was something hidden, and he was not articulating it in the meeting, and she brought him apart, and then he said, look, there's going to be a reorganization, my team doesn't know, but I need that you think of it a bit different. So even when she was using that generative AI for those outcomes of the meeting, it was super important that she was reading the room, realizing something, talking separately, and so on. So most of the stories are like this. They are using it, but still it's super important that you are in the driver's seat and not just delegate on that.
Yeah, that's something at least I have noticed. For example, when you're working, I don't know, in the open source, that you get some people that say, "Hey, ChatGTP just replied me this," and it's totally wrong. It's maybe you should
It's,
not copy paste what generative AI is telling you.
that's another topic we're saying. The chatbots don't have imposter syndrome. They look super confident.
Exactly. I think that's one thing to remember. These models are compulsive liars, right? Because they have absolutely no self-conscious. It's not that they try to mislead you; they just have no clue whether. And so I think there is absolutely always room for human judgment. And even if they stay factually correct, there is always nuance, and there is always multiple ways to do things, and it's irreplaceable. The human judgment is simply irreplaceable. I think human needs to drive the AI and effectively use the AI. And so that's the strategy. The strategy is you still need to understand what you're trying to accomplish. You cannot simply say, hey, generative AI, tell me what it is I'm trying to accomplish. You need to understand the goals. You need to set the goals. You need to have a definition of success and how to measure whether you're making progress towards there. And then Gen AI is there to help you with some of probably more mundane things, right? For example, start a message of this start an email, right? Or create a diagram based on what you know for this sort of situation, and then the diagram isn't there to copy paste. The diagram is there to accumulate the knowledge available to the model through training or RAG, and then apply your judgment to say, okay, and given what I know about this customer, this is how I should update that. This is how I should uh, maybe completely change it. That isn't going anywhere, and I think it's a mistake to over rely on Gen AI, just like it will be a mistake to not rely on it. Finding that balance is where I think for the next couple of years, as consumers of generative AI, there is a completely separate perspective of how you build systems with generative AI. But as a consumer of generative AI, I think that's probably what we will all be learning is finding that balance where we use it effectively to the max, but also remain in the driver's seat, to Naya's point.
And also, bias is a big thing for these models because they get, for example, let's go to AWS products. No, there's so many architectures using EC2s because it's something that has been there out for million years.
Yep,
And you ask a model, how is the best way to do this? And it may tell you to put an instance and install some component that
yep,
is 10 years old. And you're like, I don't know. But I think you need to get that I don't know thing going on. And maybe you need to
exactly.
tell the model, like, hey, can you give me a more modern solution, a
Yep,
serverless solution? So you push them out of their bias of this is all the information I have been trained is mostly, I don't know, or is it too?
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right because it doesn't have a sense of what is of trend. It simply has a sense of either frequency or sort of density, and that's what it will default to as likely best response to your question. And then you need to have a sense of, okay, it doesn't feel like the right answer, or maybe I need to probe a little more. Maybe I need to be more specific with my question, right? Because I think there is a sort of this tricky part because the interface is conversational. We default to the way we communicate with humans, but with humans there is a lot of shared context which doesn't exist in this case, right? And so if you ask the same question of a model or of your colleague, you will have very different answer, and not because model knows more. Okay, it does have more factual knowledge stuff into it sometimes, but it doesn't have shared context. Like, it doesn't really understand why you asked this question, and so that's important to not fall into the trap that even though it's human-like conversation, it is not human conversation.
Yeah, sometimes at least I try to think when I'm asking something to the model that is not you're asking to one person, you're asking to 1,000 persons the same question.
Yeah,
Because then
whom you
it's
never met
like
before, right?
who you don't know the context if you're
Yeah,
just getting a collective answer of 100 or 1,000 persons on whatever you're asking, and it can be you need to still have knowledge, you need to know what the topic, you need to understand to take out the things that are not important, but it's a great conversation starter, like you start probing and digging
It-
into.
this is what we cover in the book, that we get also the conclusion that the skills are going to be in asking the right questions. So it's going to be more on the questions than on the answers from now on.
yep, yep, absolutely, absolutely good point. But also, I think going back to what Marcia said, it's also having that intuition of whether the question seems right. Asking the right question, the answer, sorry. Asking the right question, but also having the intuition about the answer. Does the answer seem right? This is why, again, irreplaceable that you are in the driver's seat. You cannot let that thing drive you because it doesn't have a sense of purpose. It doesn't have a sense of direction.
I like some systems like Amazon Q that gives you at least the citation where it takes the information, so at least you can verify. Okay, this is in the AWS documentation.
It's
This doesn't
important.
that this makes sense. At least somebody like put it here. It's not something that the model decide that Lambda can run for 2 hours and a half, and it's yeah. Where? Why? And how you make teams more productive, because for now we are talking like we need to pick the brains of the generative AI and we need to ask questions and still know a lot of information, and this doesn't seem very productive if you think about just talking to a computer and asking questions. Why we don't just go and do it? How we can make these essays more productive than other essays that don't use generative AI.
So one thing that sometimes I've discussed is, so this is for the essays listening to us, or for any other technical person, or not even technical, that is listening to us. Think which tasks can actually be like automated, which ones can be augmented, and which ones are human, and try to use as much as possible from those list of tasks that you have every day to use generative AI, what can be automated or augmented, and focus on those ones. So I would think, thinking that as a basis, like the productive teams will be the ones that collectively know how to use those generative AI for that part, know how to challenge it, and then they can focus on what brings value to the customer, or where they need to use their wisdom, like instead of their just knowledge.
Can you give some examples of those tasks that you have seen essays like master with generative AI that are really good and they can save a lot of time?
One that should be very is a bit like also what you do. Like we go a lot to do talks and conferences and so on. And at least I remember I was talking once in the MIA summit when it was virtual, and I had to do the same talk in 3 languages. I had to create the create the deck, translate it, record myself. I spent so much time. The demo that I prepared for this comprehend or whatever it was, I applied AI. It was not taking me as much time as organizing all around it. So I see there are a lot of things that actually could have helped me to brainstorm or to create and duplicate and be more efficient. So, for example, that's one example in the part of thought leadership that we talk in the book. There are a lot of our essays. They are like writing blogs or, yeah, doing things that creating that content, they also have to supervise it, but it can be a lot of help.
I'm doing in my Spanish channel is dubbing a thing that we have done in English. I just throw it into a pipeline and I get the video dubbed with Polly, and I have to do some checks in the middle to make sure that it makes sense because humans are there in the driving seat. But it takes me 5 minutes to dub a video that if I have to re-record it, it will take me 1 hour to record it, edit it, put it together, and then I just let Shania and Polly and all our AI services do it for me, and it's, oh man, this is
But still,
awesome.
people want to hear you because they like how you talk, they like how you laugh. That's not going to be replaced.
My podcasts are still staying in podcast version, but the content is great because it's very valuable content that I can change it from English to Spanish with a kind of couple of
Yeah.
clicks, couple of command lines because it's all based on the time.
The,
So
the three other things where I've seen essays use this already, as Nahia mentioned, thought leadership is a big part of essay work, and we have global teams. And of course, we write blogs in different languages, but usually, if you want to reach global audience, you write in English, even if it's not your first language. And I found generative AI very helpful in that regard, as helping even native English speakers, but even more so not native English speakers, create sort of a scaffolding for a blog that they then fill with their specific expertise and then let the generative AI polish it so it sounds reasonably formatted and well flowing English. That's one. Another is, as I say, we always have to consume a lot of information, and a lot of information is coming in the form of blogs or other formats, like where it's coming fast, it's coming at high volume, high frequency, and you don't have time to read it all or watch it all in great detail. So I've seen generative AI already used very effectively there. Just TLDR this article for me. So that's the second area where I've seen it already used quite effectively.
yeah, that's a good one because reading the amount of information that we have to read is just like
I want a TLDR of my inbox. Like, please tell me like every morning. That will be useful. So there's still room to grow. But yeah. Or even for preparing for some customer dive deep sessions and so on, it's so easier using generative AI to prepare.
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know if you agree with me, but at least I notice by using generative AI that is very good if you give, for example, I'm not an English native speaker, so I write a lot and then I throw all my writing into Bedrock or whatever I'm using, and then I ask them, can you write me a one pager? Can you write me a blog post? Can you? But if you give all the information there that the model doesn't need to search or make it up, it the results are impressive because it's just basically grabbing the information and writing it, and there, at least in my personal opinion, is where it shines, and it saves me hours because I can be hours just writing one document because English is not my main language and I have a lot of mistakes. I'm dyslexic, so it's just hard, but generative AI is like my savior for these things.
absolutely, absolutely. It's a double-edged sword, though. So, for example, what I found is when I write or when I speak, I have my personal style, and I really, I guess, emotion attached to my personal style. Uh,
We are all are.
yeah, yeah, a big surprise. And what I find is if I produce some artifact where I don't care to have that sort of personal imprint, generative AI really shines. But when I have to have that personal imprint, that personal style, generative AI really isn't there. It removes the uniqueness elements, and so um, I wouldn't rely on that if I have to produce something where I care to have my style. Or I mean, I would use it to create a boilerplate, and then I would just edit the heck out of it. As I remember when I wrote my first blogs and gave them to tech writers, and they would review them and update them. I looked at it and said, "This is not my writing. This is your
Yeah.
writing." And then I would have to then redo everything they said again. Said, "No, I'm going to publish it this as quirky as it is, as imperfect as it is, because it's my writing. It's my style."
You need to fine tune a model with your own style.
Yeah, actually, this is it got me thinking that maybe in the not so distant future we could have personal writing assistant which will learn about your style, and then you can rely on it to produce something that maintains
Input
your
all
style.
your blogs,
Yeah.
all
Exactly.
your scripts, all your talks,
Like,
and then
Yeah, look, like write it as Marcia. Explain it. It's like,
It would laugh in the middle. Yeah, that's really good. I think we can wrap up this part of the video because we will have 2 sessions with you guys. And this one, we talk about a little bit about the future, the book. And in the second part, that is the video coming up next week, I want to talk about the roles of essays that I know a lot of the people watching are interested in knowing what essays do, what it means to be an essay. I think we can say bye-bye for now and meet again next week and talk about that. What do you think?
Sounds good.
Definitely, we're talking about essays. Let's talk about what is to be an essay.
Exactly.
good.
That's your perfect couple to talk about that. I see you in another episode. Bye-bye.
Bye.